So this is lesson 7 of the social emotional learning curriculum. The purpose of this lesson is for you to recognize that your history plays a huge role in the person that you are today and the person that you will wind up being in the future. We want you to recognize that sometimes social political structures and events that might be happening around you will influence the way that you behave. And so in this lesson, you will have the opportunity to really dig in, to excavate the personal history that you have and see how you can use that to plan for the future. Your main learning targets, there are 2 of them. 1, I can recognize and address the historic and social political events that have created trauma and affected my experiences and experiences of my peers as we navigate our world today. 2, I can look at the history of social changes and plan to improve the future with my action. So, the agenda is not very long because there are not as many steps for this lesson. So you can see that and use that as a gauge for how long you will need to do this. I would say about an hour or so. So, what else do I need to know? This lesson is anchored around a speech that was delivered by James Baldwin over 55 years ago. So before you watch the video, what I want you to do is really take some time to look at some of these historic events that were happening at the time that James Baldwin delivered this speech, or a little bit before. Okay? Click on each link and you can read about certain things that were happening at the time. The civil rights movement was big in the 60s, right? Earlier, started in the 50s. What's the history of racial and political protest in the U.S.? Lyndon Johnson, who's that guy? What is he about anyway? And the slave bill. What's that? These are all things that are mentioned in the speech by James Baldwin, and so it's good for you to know these things before you listen to the speech so you can have a really good understanding of what he's talking about. While you're listening to the speech, if you want to come back and click on some of these links so you can have an understanding while you're listening to it, that's a really great idea too. So let's talk about and think about, why does this learning matter? So for this section, I want you to think about, why does this learning matter today? What's the reason why it's something that's important for us to start thinking about and learning about as our world progresses today? Some of the words that you might come across in this lesson are here in the vocabulary review. So if you see something that's unfamiliar, you can use these. You can use this vocabulary review, or you can use the one that's at the top here on the glossary. It's on the top of each page. Okay. And if not, then you can always look it up online. Some of the skills that you will wind up using, or you'll have an option to use, are here. There are at least 4 different things that are listed, but again, there are different ways that you can execute this. And so if you choose another way that helps you, then that's fine. These are all ways that we suggest that you do this. One of the things I do want to highlight is that when you're using a computer versus an iPad or iPhone or even an Android phone, some of these technology might work differently, so just be aware of that. If you don't see a link here, then you can find something online. Usually there are lots of links out there on YouTube. So here's a video that I referred to earlier, the speech that was given by James Baldwin. And so you click on this link and it will take you to the speech, and it's a video as well, so you can watch him and see what he's looking like and how he carries himself as he delivers the speech. Now, after you watch the video, think about the things that you just saw in the video, the things that you just heard him talk about. And so here's a breakdown of some questions that will help you to start thinking deeper about some of the things that James Baldwin addresses in his speech. And then after you answer these questions for yourself, we want you to create a dialogue with James Baldwin, as if you are talking directly to James Baldwin. Right? So what would you say to him if you saw him on the street of Harlem or on the subway one day? What would you ask him? What's a personal connection that you think you can make with him so that you can really relate to what he's saying? Okay, so just think of it in that context, as if he's walking down the street beside you and you're talking to him. Okay, now after you've thought about those things, create the dialogue. Write it out a little bit so you can know what you want to say and be prepared before you do a recording. Okay, here is a little script that's written out for you with some more things to think about while you're creating your dialogue. And then step 4 is for you to choose a way to present that. So if you have your script written out of what you'd want to say, highlight things, then choose either a Flipgrid, an iMovie, create a Padlet, create a story on Instagram or Facebook. One of these ways, any of these ways that you would like to create and present this whole dialogue that you just imagined yourself having with James Baldwin. So if you're not certain after that what to do or how to do it, there are some really creative ways that you can do this. This one is one person creating a dialogue but having 4 different characters. So that might be a way that you can do it using iMovie. You can look at this Instagram post of how, to create like a narrative on Instagram. You can create a Padlet with it. So these are 3 different ways that you can do it. But if you just want to record an audio, you can also do that. So just remember that these are just examples, but you can also just do a basic audio recording with you and a friend. Okay? After you've done that, after you've done your recording, video, whatever it is that you want to do, created your Padlet, make sure you put a link to it here in step 5 and share it with your teacher or and make sure that they know that you've completed it. Check out the learning targets again. Make sure that you actually do and were able to reach all those learning targets, and then just move on to lesson 8.